for Dallas? And then how do you unlock it on a weekly basis? Do you have an answer to that?
I don't know. I don't know how to put my finger on it. I mean, you
right?
look at the game against Buffalo, and just look. That's a good defense, but just
they got out physical.
Yep. I think getting the football in your best player's hands, though, and that resides in the backfield right now. And I think when they're featuring Zeke and he's rolling like this, and Bucky mentioned Pollard going over 100 yards as well. I would be remiss though if we don't mention one of the worst tackling performances from a defense I've seen all season long from the Rams. It was awful. You heard in the call there a couple missed tackles. We'll talk about it in the aftermath.
Yes,
I'll show you some more where every big play, unblocked defenders, just falling off tackles. And that, though, is the way the Cowboys want to play. When they feature their run game, feature their backs, not even just in the run game, just getting the ball to their hands out in space, some in the passing game as well, they're at their best.
You know what it felt like? It felt like what the Rams did to the Cowboys in the playoffs last year with Todd Gurley and with C.J. Anderson, both running the football down their throats. I mean, and for the Rams, you hit on it with the missed tackling. This kind of continues this theme of Jekyll and Hyde defense. Like, they could be really good on defense, which we've seen, and then they'll have games like this one, games like the Ravens. Now, given, these are two good running football teams, but that's something that obviously, look, it's going to be a long shot now for the Rams to make the playoffs. I mean, they got to win out no matter what, and they got two really tough teams lying ahead here in these final 2 weeks. So, look, I feel like the door is closing if it isn't shut already on the Rams, but when they look back at it, lack of consistent run game and a consistently solid defense will be two of the reasons why.
No doubt. All right, get us to our next takeaway.
Carson Wentz showcases some late-game magic once again.
Wentz under center. Wentz firing, and it is caught. Is it a touchdown? Is it a touchdown? It is caught in the far corner of the end zone. It is a touchdown, and they are surrounding as the pass goes deep into the end zone to Greg Ward. A great pass by Wentz and a great catch by Ward. Greg Ward, where have you been all our lives?
Where have you been? I'll tell you where Greg Ward has been, just real quick. How about
He's been on the waiver wire.
Yeah. He's been a stud quarterback at the University of Houston, right? He was an undrafted free agent wide receiver, practice squad, AAF. You might have called one of his games, DJ. Then practice squad again. Called up just 3 weeks ago. Makes his first career catch 3 weeks ago, and then goes 4 catches, 40 yards in the clutch on that final drive for the Eagles that gets them the win. Now, let me go back to the original point. The tagline of the takeaway here. What do we ask of our elite quarterbacks? Raise the level of play of the guys around you and be at your best when your team needs you the most. I think you can say those two things about Carson Wentz the last 2 weeks. Has the competition been subpar? Mm-hmm. Yes, it has. But you still have to make those plays, and he is making the plays for the Eagles. With their playoff hopes on the line here, he has given you that elite level in the last 2 weeks. He's rediscovered it. Depleted core of targets, they make the plays to get it done. So, does the lack of top-end talent, though, make them less likely to win a game in the playoffs? Probably, but with Carson Wentz playing this way, I don't know if I'm going to bet against them, DJ.
It's fascinating because when you look at all the injuries that they've had, and not just in their weapons, but you talk about the offensive line and Lane Johnson being in and out of the lineup. Jason Peters has been hurt. Carson Wentz has got 26 touchdowns, 7 picks. He's got 34 over 3,400 yards. So he's having a really solid season considering everything that's been missing around him. But I'm with you on him being able to elevate the play of those around him. And I also am enjoying the fact they're getting Miles Sanders.
Yeah, thank goodness. That was the next
more
part,
involved
right?
In this offense. They needed to unleash him. He's their best backfield option. He has been all season long, and now they're starting to really feed him. And we'll talk about this one on the aftermath as well. Just the vision that he displayed was on full display in this one. It was outstanding. He's got a great feel for it. He brings some juice to the backfield, and that's going to be a key member of this team going forward. Now, they need to get younger up front. There's some other things they need to do on this roster. Out at receiver position, you're going to see an overhaul here in the offseason. But, man, Miles Sanders is a keeper.
Yeah, no question. My fantasy team. Thanks, Doug Peterson. Thanks, Carson Wentz, and everyone for that game plan that featured Miles Sanders to keep me alive, and I'm sure a few of you out there as well. All right, DJ, hit us with number 4.
All right, the Minnesota Vikings, they have themselves a championship defense.
And Phillip Rivers with the bolt on his helmet. Back to pass. He dropped the ball. It's about to be picked up by a Viking. Bouncing around. And Fonio Denebo has it. He's to the 50, to the
That play right there was a key play, as you saw where they were on the field, Rhett. This is a Chargers team losing 12-10 in field goal range. Chance to kick a field goal, take the lead, going into the half. They get the ball coming out in the third quarter. They get the fumble return for a touchdown. You come out of the break, Melvin Gordon fumbles on the first play. Those were 2 of 7 turnovers forced by the Minnesota Vikings in this football game. You're never going to lose. And as bad as that score was, it could have been worse because the Chargers defense held them to some field goals after really, really short fields they inherited after turnovers. But I look at this defense, and I look at a front that's capable of getting after the quarterback. The linebackers, especially Eric Kendricks, they're phenomenal in coverage, which you're going to need when you get in the postseason. You start looking at some of the backs you're going to have to cover, tight ends. That's going to be key. Now, offensively, they're conservative. They're efficient. They run the football. Kirk Cousins not going to put the ball in harm's way. Very few turnovers. Had one on a screen in this game. But this is a team, Rhett, when you look at it with the way their defense is capable of playing, They've got a chance to win the whole thing, and I know there's a lot of good teams you have to go through in the postseason, but they match up when they're at their best defensively. They're going to be in every game.
Yeah, I want to hone in on one of the players responsible for some of that havoc that the Chargers offense had to deal with in this game. That's Danielle Hunter. First career game with 2+ forced fumbles in this game, but it's not just the plays he makes as the principal on one of those big plays. Like, yes, he pancaked the right tackle on that forced fumble from Odenigbo, did force the fumble, and then Odenigbo picks it up. And who makes the key block to spring Odenigbo on the touchdown? On the return, it was Danielle Hunter.
There you go.
So he gets back up, and he's still. It's the splash plays, but it's also the little things that contribute to those, and he certainly does all of that. And here's the other thing that I want to focus in on: the 7 takeaways. All right, that's tied for 5th most in a game in Vikings history. 5th most? Like, how many turnovers did they force? How many do you have to get number 1?
I do know this. We thought it would have been a record for the Chargers calling the game.
It wasn't?
In 1979, James Harris was filling in for Dan Fouts, and they had 11 turnovers in a game in 1979. Think about that. 11.
Oh, my God. All right, so wait, here's
Crazy.
the second part that's crazy. The Vikings have forced 7 takeaways 13 times, but they've only won the game 8 times in those 13. They're 8-5 when they force 7.
How is that possible?
How do you lose 5 games when you force 7 turnovers? That's really bad luck, I guess. Goodness gracious.
Yes.
So,
pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Pretty nuts. But that was a team. Now, look, they've got the Packers, and we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. But this is a Minnesota Vikings team. I think they haven't played great on the road throughout the year, but I do think they have the pieces in place where they could travel with the run game, with the defense. So
the Dalvin Cook thing could be big. Well, and obviously we gotta pay attention to that. That didn't look good when we saw him go down. Obviously you saw it in person. Seemed like he was in a good deal of pain there. Hopefully he can kind of figure things out and not put the oxygen mask on his ear. I don't know if you guys saw that as well. That was really that was a really funny scene from the game. But certainly hoping for the best for Dalvin Cook.
Funny.
He's a big piece of what the playoff plans could be for the Vikings.
All right, let's get out to Bucky for the next takeaway. He's got something going on there in the NFC South.
Jameis Winston continues to take the Buccaneers on a wild roller coaster ride.
It is first down 10 from the 34. Play action fake. Rolling to the right. Pass toward the end zone. Receiver over. Caught. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Brashad Perriman on a perfect throw. Bad thumb and all from Jameis Winston.
Early in the game, we saw him throw another interception. A guy who throws a ton of interceptions. But he responds back, another 400-yard game, 4 touchdowns, continues to lead one of the more explosive offenses in the National Football League. And the thing that you have to wonder if you're Bruce Arians, on a weekly basis, the Jekyll and Hyde act that you deal with Jameis Winston, you have to be pleased that he always bounced back, but he gives the other team so many opportunities. I don't know how you manage it, but at the end of the day, he is the first NFL player in history to have back-to-back games with over 450-plus passing yards. He continues to light up the scoreboard. This offense flows when he is the director. I think you just have to look at him and understand that he's a high-risk, high-reward player, but it's working. The Buccaneers continue to roll with an up-and-down quarterback.
Well, I mean, Rhett, you look at the numbers now. 4,500 yards, 4,570. He's gonna have 5,000 passing yards this year. He's got 30 touchdowns, 24 picks. My hope for the 30-30 season, wanting to see that. I don't know if it's possible if he can get 6, but you never know. Coming down these last 2 games, they're on fire, man. They won 4 in a row. they're playing good football. They're finding ways to win games, and it is explosive. Whatever you think about the turnovers, and you try and get beyond that, you cannot deny this is an explosive offense.
Right. And look, I still think the best option for the Bucs and for Winston here is to go the franchise tag route next year. Because, like, and the other side of it is, so, like, at this point, I feel like the Bucs should, in pregame, bring their defense out, their number one defense.
Let him throw two?
Let him just throw a couple to him and just get that early one out of the way, because then he finds his focus, and he has shown he can be one of the best quarterbacks in football at times. We just need to maximize those times and limit the times where you're like, oh, my God, we can't play with this guy, because there's both. So, we've had this conversation, I feel like, for 8 straight weeks now, and there's no definitive answer either way yet. So I feel like the franchise tag route is still the best way for them to go. Get another year to kind of figure things out. Keep him around. I just, I don't know at this point that they're going to be, in the market for a quarterback come draft time, at least not in the first round with wherever they're going to end up being picking as far as the top quarterbacks. So, look, I think, you got to stick with what you know, and I think what Jameis Winston is now. How do you work around it? And that'll be their task next year. On the other side, DJ, for the Lions, like, they are falling apart. And I get it. You're playing with David.
Oh, man.
You're playing with David Blau, your number 3 quarterback. But then, we've seen what the Pittsburgh Steelers have been able to do on defense with a number 3 quarterback, number 4 quarterback, really, the way they started the season, Devlin Hodges. And I think that's what we kind of expected out of a Matt Patricia-led defense, right, was that they were going to be able to win some games on the strength of their defense and their strategy. And they've got some good players over there. I know they've been banged up a little bit as well. So I don't know what to make of the Lions either. And I don't know how much patience there is within that organization moving forward as well.
Yeah, I don't think it looks good, and I know you're down a quarterback, but when you look at even the wins they've had, I think their wins are all real nail-biter, wins.
Yeah, some of their losses too early.
But that was one.
Right, they've fallen off the
tracks. Yeah, but
here.
I'm just saying, like, this is not a hard luck team here that's been blowing people out and then losing close games. Like, that's not the case. So we'll see what happens here going into the offseason. It's a tough blow with the Stafford situation, but you're right. Other teams have lost quarterbacks and found a way to stay in it, and this team, it just hadn't happened, man. And getting blown out like this, just a bad look.
Hey, one last thing here. Ozzie really well with the Ravens, and he took Brashad Perryman in the first round with the Ravens 4 years ago now. Are we starting to see some of the reasons why? With Mike Evans out, he's proven that he can be a pretty good player. It looks like. He caught 2 touchdowns in this game. Is there something to be said? It's his 4th year in the league. It's his 3rd team. Does it take longer? Do you have patience to give a guy that long to kind of figure things out?
Well, to me, I think he's a scheme fit. He's a scheme fit for what Bruce Arians wants to do. He's not a good route runner. He's just a straight line explosive player who, look at Bruce Arians' history and what is he like and who does he like to use at the wide receiver position. What skills does he covet? It's what Brashad Perriman has and what he does. Right. Ironically, I think with the way the Ravens offense is now, with how it's functioning,
better. Yeah,
Brashad Perriman actually would actually fit there now. Yeah. So sometimes he just is not a scheme diverse guy. He's not somebody that would have fit anywhere he went, and it wasn't a good fit there.
I think it's an important distinction to make. I think he's found a nice little home for himself there in Tampa. We like to see that. All right, I'll get us to our next takeaway here, and that is that the Texans are one step closer to the AFC South crown.
First and goal at the 10, split backs. Watson in the gun. Watson hands off to Hyde, running to the left. Carlos has the 5. Carlos to the pylon. He's in! Touchdown! Houston! 10-yard TD run. El Guapo for the lead.
El Guapo for the lead.
Nice.
Some big tests here down the stretch for Houston in these last couple weeks. They failed a couple, as we saw with the Ravens game and then with the Broncos game. But with the Patriots, they get the win there. They come back in a must-have on the road against Tennessee, and they get the win here. Take care of your division, and they're doing that here as they've proven this week. The defense stepped up in a big way in this game early on when it was kind of going back and forth here. Tannehill had them in position for a score, and Whitney Merciless picks off a pass off a deflection here and then returns it deep into Tennessee Titans territory, as you're seeing. And this is where I felt the game start to swing a little bit, because a couple plays later, Deshaun Watson ends up finding Kenny Stills for a touchdown, ended up finding Stills twice, and you're going to see one of those on the aftermath a bit later in an XO you're doing, which I'm excited to see, because I feel like with Stills and Fuller healthy, and with a commitment to Carlos Hyde, which we heard from very eloquently from Mark Vandermeer there on the radio call, the Texans' offense is a force. It's a force to be reckoned with. When they can run the ball with Carlos Hyde, they've got a really good receiver trio, because Will Fuller's speed gives them so many options, makes them so much more dangerous. And then Kenny Stills is a really good third piece to that wide receiver trio. I still think this team is going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
And I think Kenny Stills was kind of viewed almost like a throw-in.
It really
Kenny
was.
Stills
That's
is
what it felt like.
Football player. Yeah. He has been a really good pickup there. I think he's got, over 500 yards receiving. He's got 4 touchdowns this year. But the speed element, when you have when you have Nuke Hopkins on one side, he's going to get all the attention. And so when you have speed opposite of him, when you have it with 2 guys with Fuller and Stills, they're going to get man coverage, and you're going to be able to find when you look at teams matching up with wide receivers, you go 3 wide, you're going to see 3 corners out there. Very few teams have 3 corners that can really, really run. And so you're going to get a matchup there with one of those 2 guys that you like, and they've been able to take advantage of that down the field with some deep shots. Also, I'd add the offensive line played pretty well in this game, protecting Deshaun Watson, keeping him upright, and then also his ability to extend plays. When you go through the tape, I actually pull out the phone on the stopwatch, because a couple of these times you're talking 6 seconds you're asking these guys to hold coverage, and you get scrambles, and that is a tall ask for your secondary. So this team, who pushed all their chips into the table when they made that trade to go get Laramie Tunsil, they're all in right now. So to me, this is I feel almost a little bit of desperation here with this group. They've got to get to the postseason. They've got to make some hay in the postseason this year. They committed to it.
No, I think you're right. And the last thing I'll say about the Texans, last year I felt like they just ran out of bodies at wide receiver. They ran out of bodies at corner, and they were never as good as they are right now up front on the offensive line side. Now, you talked about corners and how difficult it is to find 3 corners. Look at the talent that they've acquired at corner in Houston. They've got Gary and Conley they traded for this year. They have Vernon Hargraves. Lonnie Johnson was their second-round pick this year. They've got the old standby in Jonathan Joseph. And then Bradley Roby also, who's been a bit banged up at times this year. That's 4 first-round picks and a second. Now, look, I get that a lot of those guys are Texans now for a reason. The previous team felt it was okay to move on from them. But,
underachieved.
But there's some depth there that they're building, whereas if one of those guys goes down, it's not the whole thing's going to fall apart. So I think that's interesting as we get into the postseason as well.
Well, they need him to hit because they got no draft picks.
Right.
We'll see.
Right.
We'll see how this goes down the stretch here. This is their draft class.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep the train moving here. Josh Allen for the Bills. He might not be the perfect quarterback, but he is the perfect quarterback for Buffalo.
16 seconds left. Here's the snap. Hodges looks, runs to his left, directing traffic, fires it into the end zone. It is picked off. It is intercepted. It is picked up by the Bills. That should do it. Levi Wallace comes up with a pick. His teammates surround him down in the end zone. Interception for the Bills with 6 seconds left. Wallace comes up with the pick. The Bills are going to the postseason.
Yeah, you heard the call there on the defense, generating 4 interceptions in this game. And I talk about Josh Allen, you talk about the defense, it all goes together. It's a complementary team. It's built, they have a formula. We've talked about it all year long. Protect the football, get a couple explosive plays. Josh Allen can make a couple of those splash plays. Not going to wow you. He's not going to complete, 80% of his balls, but he did hit some big shots to John Brown down the field. And the defense, they're going to win a lot of these type of games just because they turn you over, and they've done it all year long.
And look, I think you hit the nail right on the head with your tagline there. Josh Allen is the perfect quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. It's not going to be the prettiest offense you've ever seen. It's not going to be the K-gun with Jim Kelly back in the days of the early 90s and the late 80s. But this is the perfect complement to a physical defense, and a defense that will always keep you in games. By the way, a defense that has probably one of the best corners now in football. You heard Collinsworth wax poetic about it all night long.
Number 2.
Tre'Davious White. And we might see both of the top 2 corners in football square off head-to-head this week, and Stephon Gilmore for the Patriots and for the Bills, Tre'Davious White. And, I'll mention it on the Aftermath as well later today, but how much does it say about the Bills that I feel like one of the biggest tests that will help us learn about the Patriots will come this week against the Bills, and that the AFC East is not completely sewn up just yet. I think that's a real credit to what Buffalo has built there. Kim Jones mentioned it in our production meeting. They have built a culture there that she said other teams that she covers have been trying to build. They've got it right now in Buffalo, and we gave them a hard time, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, and we gave them a hard time when they were letting all that talent walk out the door, sending them all on their ways. Remember the three day one starters that walked off the bus in Doug Whaley's final draft class there. A lot of those guys were sent packing. Marcel Darius sent packing, a former top 5 pick in this league. And you're like, what are they doing over there? All this talent is leaving. Well, they were building something, and the ownership group should be given credit for giving them the time and the opportunity to go ahead and do that. And for them to get their second playoff appearance in 3 years with Sean McDermott is pretty special. On the flip side, the Steelers can win out and still get into the playoffs. But they can't run the ball 15 times and have Duck Hodges throw it 38 times.
No.
That just can't happen.
No,
And they were never down that big in this game. That's why I'm trying to figure it out. I get you were trying to limit James Conner in his first game back from the shoulder injury, but there are other guys that you can hand it off to, right?
No doubt. And look at what they have left. They're at the Jets, at the Ravens. I guess maybe their hope is the Ravens have it all sewn up at that point in time, and maybe they rest. But that's trust me, Baltimore would love nothing more if that were the final punch to knock the Pittsburgh Steelers out of the playoffs. Trust me, they would get a kick out of that. So, no, that was a very, very bizarre play calling in that one, just in terms of how they did it. But I want to add the last point before we move on to the next one, and that is having your coach and your GM on the same page, and those guys have a relationship in Buffalo dating back to Carolina.
Yep.
I think that's a key part of it as they've been able to turn this thing around there in Buffalo. All right, what's next?
Great point. Next up, the Patriots turned it on in Cincinnati. Now, how do they move on from Cincinnati?
Dalton takes the snap, fires to the right, pass to be intercepted by Gilmore. Goodbye. Gone to the 50, left sideline 40, to the 30. Stephon Gilmore to the 10, en route to his second pick 6 of the season. Touchdown, Patriots!
Gilly locked that one up. What an angle by Gilmore off this. Patriots show blitz late. Gilmore closes. It's a throw to the flat. Gilly Lock jumps it for a 64-yard touchdown. What a second half start by him here. Woo!
And there's that other corner we're talking about, Stephon Gilmore. Is he a Defensive Player of the Year candidate? Absolutely, right? I mean, is he going to be the first one since Charles Woodson to win it? Yeah, I think it's a real possibility.
He's right there. He's right there. Yeah.
So look, this is a win for the Patriots. Let's call it what it is. But does it do much to tell us what to expect from them moving forward? Yes, their defense got back to their big play ways, right? Forcing 3 turnovers on the first 4 possessions for the Bengals in the second half. They ended all 3 of the first 4 in the second half of the Bengals ended in picks. One of them was returned for a score. The other Bengals possession there that I was talking about was a punt. This game was over at that point. The special teams recovered a muff punt that turned into points in the end of the first half as well. But here's again where we're drawing the questions. Tom Brady, I think something like just over 2 yards per attempt, which was the second lowest of his career.
Wow.
128
yards.
Yeah, to say that they put up 34 points and Brady only threw for 128, whatever it was, that's kind of crazy. Julian Edelman is banged up, and that's bad news because he has been legitimately all they have out there at receiver for the last few weeks. Can he get healthy in time for a postseason run? They did utilize the running back group a little more creatively and a little more than I think we've seen in recent weeks. James White, Sony Michel had a pretty good day running the football. Rex Burkhead in there as well. As I mentioned when we were talking about the Bills, what does it say about the Patriots team that we're going to find out a little bit more about them heading into Week 16 in a game against a good Bills team, in a game and at this point of a season where they have not sewn up the AFC East, where it's not a foregone conclusion. So that's how I feel about the Patriots at this point.
the crazy thing is we can talk about all the flaws with this football team, and there are many on the offensive side of the ball. They sit at 11-3. I mean, is that
they're winning football
to be
games?
So lucky that you get to the point. You get to the point where that organization is, where literally the national storyline is these guys stink, and they're 11-3, and they've got a chance if they can finish out the season here. Get the number 2 seed. You're going to get a bye. You're going to get a chance to get a little bit refreshed, get a little healthy. You're going to get 2 weeks to study an opponent. You feel good about Bill Belichick having a couple weeks there. You're at home, probably in the snow in Foxborough. I mean, I don't care who rolls in there that game. You're probably going to feel good if you're the Patriots. And then in all likelihood, you're going to get a rematch with the Baltimore Ravens, and you're in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's what's so crazy. As flawed and as ugly as this is, they still have everything all in front of them.
I mean, make no mistake. Like, I'm not counting them out in the playoffs. They get a home playoff game. They are as good a thought as anybody to win in that situation. But it just doesn't feel like the teams that we've seen in the past, where they are clicking on all cylinders at this point in a season. Yeah. That's the only point that I got there.
No doubt. All right, let's get to my 9th one here, and that was a fun battle between Heisman-winning teammates.
Yes,
fun one to watch there with Kyler and Baker.
31 seconds to go in the half. Murray back to pass. Has time. Floats it right side corner of the end zone. And it is caught. Touchdown, Dan Arnold. The Cardinals really like him. They got him off waivers from the Saints. The former undrafted player out of Wisconsin, Platteville. With his first catch as a Cardinal, it's a touchdown.
There you go. Listening to Kyler Murray do his thing there. And this is a game, Kenyon Drake running the football well. You look at Nick Chubb running the football well. Man, you want that to be able to support your young quarterbacks, but I thought when you just looked at the two between Kyler and Baker, I thought just a cleaner game there from Kyler, making some plays with his legs as well.
Is it fair to go back and just kind of combine these two drafts and just say, hey, if you gave all 32 teams an option and all 32 teams needed a quarterback, and Kyler and Baker were in the same draft, and they all had a shot at either one of them, that the majority of them would lean which way? Is that
Kyler
a fair
would
question?
Get the majority of them.
Yeah.
Kyler would get.
Is that? I mean,
I think that is. I think you might be surprised though. I think it
right.
might be a little bit close. You'll have some Baker people, but I just think Kyler Murray. I look at them, and you see some of the clips we're looking at right now. Man, the blueprint for this organization exists, and I think even Lamar's going to win the MVP this year.
Yeah.
But I think if you put them out on the field and had a throwing contest between Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray would win going away. I mean,
that's crazy to think about,
type
right?
Of throw, he's just more consistent. So to me, you go out. They're going to go hunting for tight ends. I would. If you're Cliff Kingsbury, I'd go out. I'd try and emulate a little bit. Don't take the whole offense because you can do some different things there. But I'd be trying to build and copy a little bit of what the Baltimore Ravens have done to incorporate Kyler a little bit more as a runner. He's a more reluctant runner than Lamar. He likes to sit back there in the pocket. But, man, you saw it a couple times when they went with the 3-man backfield. He took off. I mean, he's just got ridiculous athleticism. I'd like to incorporate a little more of that.
Well, you hit on it, and that was one of my questions that I was going to have for you here about this game. What do the Cardinals need to do to be a 10-win team? You mentioned the tight ends. I think offensive line upgrade is pretty obvious as well.
Yes.
And then, what's your biggest priority on defense? Because you got a pass rusher,
I think
Chandler
you want
Jones,
playmaker
right?
in the secondary.
Yeah.
You got to find another playmaker in the secondary. We'll see what happens with Patrick Peterson going forward, but they just need more blue chip players, really at all three levels, just guys that can make plays. That's what they're missing right now, in my opinion. But they're going to get a chance. They'll have an off season here. If you look at the free agent list, and we got plenty of time to dig into that down the road. Potentially some intriguing tight ends that could hit the marketplace. So to me, that would be the first place I'd look offensively to add them into the mix.
I just left that game feeling more hopeful about the Cardinals than I did about the Browns.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
How sad is that? And the Browns they're littered with talent. Littered with talent.
Yeah. All right. I'll get us to our final takeaway here. And I hope this isn't his last, but if it is, Eli goes out in New York in the way in which he will be remembered, which is as a winner.
Barkley to the right of Manning in a shotgun set. Manning on a play fake. Looks right, throws right, passes. Caught by Tate. Makes a man miss to the 20, 15. He's to the 5. Backs into the end zone for a touchdown. 51 yards, Manning to Tate.
got something I want to pass along after on what happened right after that particular play right there, DJ. But a few things about my pal Eli here, which obviously we've made no reservations about on this show. Look, I'm very close with the family, buddies with Eli, and so here's what I'll say. In the NFL's 100th year, we've been celebrating all kinds of top moments and plays and players in the history of the game, and rightly so. And I think one of the lists that we don't have that Eli would appear on is the list of top faces of the franchise. Because in New York, nobody has done it better than Eli has. Nobody has handled being the franchise quarterback in the country's #1 media market better than Eli has. And it was awesome to see the Giants fans and the Giants organization as a whole show him that kind of respect yesterday and recognize him throughout the game. Was it his best stat line? No, it wasn't. But was it enough to win? Yes. And that's how he should and likely will be remembered in New York, as a winner. A 2-time Super Bowl champion. He'll go down as the only quarterback in NFL history to upstage Tom Brady on the game's biggest stage twice. No one else will be able to claim that feat. Were there some lean years in between the Super Bowls and after the Super Bowl? The last one? Absolutely. But he was the same guy throughout all of it, whether they were 11-5 or 5-11. And I thought this quote from his dad, Archie Manning, who was there in the stands, kind of put it really well. He said, "I hate to say this about Eli. I hate to say that he doesn't give a crap. But about a lot of things, he doesn't give a crap," Archie said. And then he also went on to say, "I've heard people tell me that if Peyton played here, he'd have choked some of y'all," talking about the media. I went on to say, your children are different. It's a great call there from Arch, because he wasn't always the quarterback they wanted in New York, but he was always the guy and the teammate that they needed in New York. He was always available for his teammates, a true Iron Man, and the same man, Sundays, Mondays, Fridays, win or loss, winning season, losing season, a steady hand the entire time in New York. He never made the game about himself, although his teammates certainly made this game about him, because as we showed you, and as I alluded to after that Golden Tate touchdown catch, the first thing Golden Tate did after crossing the goal line was make a beeline to Eli Manning and hand him the football. I think everyone kind of knew that this might in fact be his final start, at least in New York. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then maybe Eli gave them one last gift. He gave his teammates one last gift, because Pat Shurmur handed him the game ball. They all wanted a speech, and they got one. And at the end, Eli said, "Celebrating a win in here with you guys is still the best feeling in the world. I'll see you on Wednesday." And I thought that was great, because I was like, "Oh, that's nice. Off. That's nice." He and Pat Shurmur had orchestrated this, and Shurmur said afterwards, was like, "No, I was not inclined to give anybody the day off. We're a 3-win football team, but I wasn't going to argue with him on this day." And so Michael Thomas was asked about this after the game, and he goes, "Eli for president, right?" Well, maybe not president, but to me, he is the greatest quarterback in Giants history, and one of the best big game quarterbacks we've ever seen, and in my book, a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think all that's true. I think he will be a Hall of Famer. I think when you think of the New York Giants, if you just said first player that pops into your head, New York Giants, I think it would be LT would be the first one that people would say, and I think Eli would be number 2. I really think that's kind of the two. You talk about the faces of an organization, different eras, obviously, Super Bowls for both. But man, he's been there. Gosh, Rhett, you go back 2004. I mean, we're 2019. That is a long run with the franchise. I hope he does what he wants to do. I know there's some talk that he, maybe he goes play somewhere else for a year. But man, he just feels like, as somebody who grew up in San Diego, who watched a guy like Tony Gwynn, he didn't belong at any other colors. And I feel like with Eli Manning, I almost like to see him say, "You know what? Let's go do whatever you want to do. Whatever. He'll be successful. Whatever he wants to do.
No question.
But take that next step." And I don't really want to see Eli Manning in another jersey, just selfishly there. All right, Buck, it's time to do a little hits and misses here. We're going to focus on the 2015 draft class, and I'm going to start us off with a hit. You ready to roll?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. This is a wide receiver in that draft who was picked in the 3rd round. I had a little bit higher grade on him than where he was selected. Okay, this is an undersized player, inside-outside versatility, outstanding burst, second gear when the ball's in the air, adjusts down the field, can high point the football, plays bigger than his size, outstanding on double moves. So kind of the knock was the lack of size. Everything else you love. And he's been much better than where he was picked in the 3rd round.
So here's what's funny about this, because I'm going through and I'm checking off all the wide receivers. And so you kind of gave it away because I'm going to listen to the breadcrumbs. Like, I'm looking at the receivers that were taken. I see a Chris Conley. He's not undersized. Sammy Coates isn't undersized. I'm looking at Ty Montgomery. He's not really undersized. But there's one guy there, Tyler Lockett from K-State. And the interesting thing about Tyler Lockett is I played with his dad, Kevin, in Kansas City. And Kevin was nearly identical in terms of the way that he played the game to his son, Tyler. Kevin was an outstanding route runner. He has the patience to set you up. And when I look at Tyler Lockett, he has all of that in his toolbox. You talked about the double moves, the run after catch ability, the return skills that also showed up early in his career. He has been a big-time player, and he's kind of become and evolved into the number 1 receiver in Seattle just because he is so polished in so many different areas. They really hit on that one.
All right, let's get to a miss here. Now, this is another one of those ones where this player is not a bust, but it's a miss. In other words, with where he was selected, you expected more. You haven't really got it. Okay, you ready, Buck?
Mm-hmm.
It's a 1st-round pick. Defensive lineman. Can extend and torque tackles. Lots of stack rip pressures. He has a quick swim move. Outstanding effort. Raw power. Raw pass rusher. So everything about him. Love the strength, the quickness. Dominant against the run. A little bit raw as a pass rusher. 1st-round pick, not a bust, good player, hasn't lived up to where he was picked.
So I'm going through and I'm checking off the list, right?
Or to my grade, I should say.
Yeah, I'm checking off the list, and at the top of the board you have a Leonard Williams. You didn't have an Eric Armstead. You have a Shane Ray. I think that's all of our Vic Beasley. I know it's not Vic Beasley because you didn't have a big grade on there. Dante Fowler too. I am going to say Leonard Williams. Let's go Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams. You got that one. I did not think you would get that.
Oh man, that was really a guess. That was really a guess because
he was my number 1 overall player.
Oh wow, man, that was a tough one because I was going back
and
forth. That
makes it a miss.
Dante Fowler and Leonard Williams. Yeah, Leonard Williams is an interesting one for me because I do wonder outside in another environment would he have been really successful. He is a guy who certainly had all the physical traits that you wanted. And I remember sitting there because I think that draft was in Chicago when he get picked. I was like, this is a great pick for the New York Jets. You get the best overall player in the draft. You get to take him right at number 6. And he hasn't played to that. He has since been traded. He's still trying to find his way. He's been a good player, not a great player. And when we're taking in the top 5 to top 10, you want great players. And Leonard Williams certainly hasn't lived up to that.
Yeah, if your team does not want to extend you on a second contract, then to me you have not lived up to where you were selected in the top 10. So good player, not a great player. Still plenty of time left in his career. Maybe he'll get it turned around. But as of right now, Leonard Williams for me, that's a miss. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. Got through the takeaways. Rhett, great to have Bucky joining us from afar, but he will be back tomorrow for the Senior Bowl roster reveal show. That'll be coming your way. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to do it for us. We appreciate you guys listening, watching. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks, presented by AARP.
Thanks for downloading Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, and Rhett Lewis. For more, go to NFL.com/podcasts.